What a crazy fucking month this has been. Jesus, between, the Charlie Kirk thing and the Jimmy Kimmel thing and the Saudi Arabia Comedy Festival. This fucking month, man. Wake me when September ends. There's shit at the top of this list that I, could have sworn I watched, 3 months ago. But it was just in this long-ass fucking month. But there's been some really great stuff out this month. One Battle After Another, obviously, was the film of the month, maybe the film of the year. Spinal Tap II, I really enjoyed. Sorry Baby, and that's not a September thing, that's just only just come out in September in the UK. That was a fucking masterpiece. So let's dive on in. Dark on Netflix. This is a few years old now, but I only just go around to watching it. It's an incredible show. It's like a German sci-fi mystery. It's the closest thing I've seen to a modern day Twin Peaks. It's the closest thing I've seen. There's been a lot of Twin Peaks imitators, and this is the closest I've seen to recapturing what made the David Lynch series and Mark Frost series so great and so unique. Which is that it was a soap opera, and the characters and their relationships and their dynamics and everything in this small town would be interesting just as a soap, just as a standard drama about these people and their lives. But there's also a pocket to a alternate dimension and supernatural monsters and things throughout this town that make it suddenly this soap becomes a supernatural horror show. And Dark does that. It introduces all these characters. They're having extramarital affairs, or this kid just got out of a mental institution and he's the girl he likes is with his best friend, and this guy's killed himself and his mom has hidden the suicide note, and he introduces all these mysterious things about what's going on with all these relationships and all these people and their lives. And then a kid goes missing in a cave and goes back in time, and this cave goes all over the map. There's scenes set in the fucking 1920s, and then the scenes set in a post-apocalyptic 2050, but it's a testament to the writing that it doesn't feel messy. It feels very carefully crafted and very carefully constructed. And the twists are incredible. There's at least one mind-blowing twist in every single episode. It's just been a hell of a ride. I can't believe I've slept on it for so long. It's incredible television. The Roses. This is the War of the Roses remake, Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman. I did a review of it on the channel, if you want to check that out. I really enjoyed this film. It's not a masterpiece, but it's really, really funny. Their chemistry is incredible, and they're both obviously really funny. And great supporting players. Andy Samberg's really funny in it, and Kate McKinnon. Allison Janney shows up in one scene as Olivia Colman's divorce lawyer and steals the fucking show. It's just a funny movie, and I like the twist that now they're a British couple in America, so you kind of have their Britishness contrasted with all their American friends, and scenes a British couple go into a gun range and shit like that. That wasn't in the original, and it kind of puts a fresh twist on this one that makes it feel like a new thing. But it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It's a nice little dark comedy with a great lead duo, perfectly matched lead duo. The Toxic Avenger. This is the Macon Blair remake or reimagining with Peter Dinklage and Kevin Bacon and Elijah Wood and Taylor Page. It was a great cast. This movie is fucking awesome. This was you worry sometimes that a remake of something that's as specific as Toxic Avenger and as transgressive as Toxic Avenger, they're gonna water it down, or they're gonna do the Hollywoodized version of it, or they'll try to do the dark, gritty, realistic version or something, and this isn't that. This is just a love letter to trauma. It's exactly in the spirit of the original film. It's just got better special effects now. Peter Dinklage is hilarious. He's this great... The thing about Tyrion Lannister was he obviously was a great dramatic role, and he was great at the more dramatic parts of it. But a lot of the time, he's just sitting there sipping wine, and he's like an insult comedian. He's quipping these barbs at people. And Peter Dinklage's comic timing was always perfect. And so he's really funny, but he doesn't... I feel like he's doing more comedies recently, but he's so funny, and he's so funny in this. He commits fully when he puts on a tutu and he's dancing around to cheer up his stepson, and then he falls and hurts his back. That's a ridiculous scenario, and Peter Dinklage just commits wholeheartedly to it. So he was wonderful in the lead role. This was a great communal theatrical experience, and it was they were only playing it once at my cinema, or maybe it was once a day, but it was only ever late at night. It was 9 o'clock at night. It was just great. It was a packed house, and everyone totally got it and was really into the humor and the violence of it, and everyone was cheering it on, and it was just a ton of fun. Alien Earth. I did a video about this. I wasn't a huge fan of it from the get-go. I liked the first 10 minutes of it, and then it kind of went once they introduced the actual premise that it's a bunch of kids in adult bodies, and that it's this monster movie, that there's xenomorphs of one of them, but there's also an eyeball with tentacles and shit, and I was just nah. But I did commit to Noah Hawley's earned the sort of, he did Fargo and Legion and they were great, so he's kind of earned the get to the end of the season, see where he's going with it. I still haven't finished the season, and I've heard that the finale doesn't really resolve anything, and it feels like the second to last episode. It feels like after you watch the finale, there should be another episode next week that's going to be the finale, and nothing gets tied up. And it feels like a lot of shows these days are just like, set up a bunch of stuff in season 1 and then hope we get season 2. But it's like, we need a resolution now, especially season 2 is not going to be for another 3 or 4 years in today's economy. So I haven't got to the end yet, but see, episode 5, I think it was, the one that was sort of like a standalone, kind of goes back to show what happened to that crew in the beginning of the first episode. That was the sequence I actually liked. That was great. That was a great episode. It's kind of like that's more what you expect from Alien. Because I feel like this was an exciting new idea to go and show us what does Earth look like in the Alien universe, but it's been a massive letdown. You know, it hasn't really explored that premise in as much depth as you would hope. But that episode that was just on a ship where, you know, how do these specimens get out? Who are they going to kill first? All that sort of thing. That was fun. Forgetting Sarah Marshall. It's one of my favorite films. One of my favorite comedies. It's so funny, and it so perfectly captures like what you go through after a breakup, after a long term, like you've been with someone for a few years kind of breakup, where you don't know life without them. And it's so funny. It's like, it captures how sad you are, but it's like laughing at him, you know? It's just one of the great comedies. The Monkey, the Osgood Perkins Stephen King adaptation. I really like this. I watched it in the cinemas, came out a few months ago, and it popped up on Prime, so I stuck it on. It was really late at night, and I fell asleep towards the end, probably with about half an hour to go, and I woke up halfway through Flight Risk with Mark Wahlberg. Like, The Monkey had ended, and then Prime was like, hey, watch this now. So I nodded off when Theo James was having like a woman's head blown off all over his face, and then I woke up to a balding Mark Wahlberg hijacking a plane. I was like, what the fuck? The Breakfast Club. I think it's been 40 years since Breakfast Club came out, and I was asked to do a retrospective review for Screen Rant, which you can check out, and I kind of liked revisiting it. I remember really liking it as a kid, and then rewatching it as like a teenager with my then girlfriend, who was very, very woke, very liberal, and she's watching the scene where Judd Nelson sticks his head up Molly Ringwald's skirt, and she was like, what the fuck is this? People like this? This is considered wholesome? And I was watching a new light like, oh shit, this is, you know, and there's like homophobic slurs that are like played for laughs, and a lot of stuff that is very 80s and hasn't aged very well. And just stylistically, it's very, very 80s. I mean, that whole scene where Emilio Estevez dances around the fucking library and then like screams in joy and just breaks the window, that would only happen in 1985. But fundamentally, I think it's a really great film. I think it's a really great script. I think John Hughes hadn't quite got the directorial thing down yet. I think it was only his second film as director, so he hadn't quite figured out how to shift from goofy dancing around the library kind of tone to the I brought a gun to school kind of tone, you know? So there's a lot of jarring shifts there. But I think it's a great script. I think in the review I compared it to like 6 Characters in Search of an Author, where you've got these stock characters, these stock high school archetypal characters of like the prom queen and the rebel and the jock and the nerd and the goth girl. And you put them all in a room together and force them to get to know each other, and they kind of realize we're not so different, you and I. You know, we run with our cliques, but really we can connect with anyone. And my favorite line in the film is when, I can't remember it. My favorite line, I can't remember it. But it's something, Emilio Estevez says something like, I don't think anyone is a normal person. Some of us are just better at hiding it. Something like that. And it's like, that's the core of the film. It's like, even Molly Ringwald, who seems to be the perfect princess, is a weirdo in her own way, you know? And that's kind of profound and kind of universal. And, you know, all the 80s flash doesn't necessarily hold up today. But that message definitely jibes today. Especially when people feel more divided and tribalized than ever. I do hate that they have the resolution of Ali Sheedy's character arc is to give her a makeover, remove any semblance of individuality from her look, and then now Emilio Estevez will kiss her, you know, as if she wasn't like fucking gorgeous before. The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, seasons 2 and 3. I watched, I hadn't seen season 2, because season 1 was very underwhelming. I love Daryl as a character, I love Norman Reedus in that role, but that was like a shallow knockoff of The Last of Us that just with a Parisian makeover, but it didn't, you know, and it didn't have the emotion of The Last of Us. But the end of that season teased that Carol's coming to France, and I didn't quite enjoy season 2. I had to catch up on the show because season 3 was coming out. I'd been sent screeners to review it, so I needed to catch up on season 2 to watch season 3. And I quite enjoyed season 2. I think the show got much better when Carol showed up. Melissa McBride's chemistry with Norman Reedus is fantastic, and, you know, obviously the main reason why they made those two characters friends in the first place, because they were like, oh shit, these guys have got a great dynamic. And So that was a joy to see. I think that was the key to make this thing work, was bring in Carol. And then season 3, at the end of season 2, they're heading through the Channel Tunnel to England, where they're going to hopefully find a boat and head back to America. And then I had heard season 3 is going to be set in Spain. So I was like, how are they going to do that? That's where it's heading to England. That's going to involve some contrivances. And it does kind of make sense. You know, the first episode, they get to England and they meet Stephen Merchant, and he was great. I wish he'd stuck around for a bit longer. They only have him, and he doesn't even make it to the end of that episode. Spoilers. But he gets them a boat and they head off and then they wash up in Spain. And so since they've gone to Spain, I've been enjoying the fact that it kind of feels like a post-apocalyptic, zombie-infested spaghetti western. They're kind of turning Daryl into like the man with no name. And there's a lot of Walking Dead cliches, a lot of tropes where they go to the community and they don't know if they can trust them, and they have to earn their trust, and they make new friends. And there's a bit of a conflict where Daryl just wants to head back to America and Carol's getting attached to her new friends in Spain. And so basically, I'm loving the Western vibes. I'm loving that it feels like a Western and looks like a Western, because they're filming in the kind of locations in Spain that Sergio Leone and Corbucci and those guys would go to. But at the end of the day, story-wise, it is just more of the same Walking Dead bullshit. Heart Eyes. This is another seasonal slasher it's on Valentine's Day. The Heart Eyes killer kills couples. And that's a good idea in theory, you know, for just a typical schlocky slasher. And you can mix like the tropes and cliches of a rom-com where these two people have a meet cute and kind of hang out together. And then the Heart Eyes killer comes after them. You can mix the rom-com with the slasher. So it was a good idea. It was lame execution let it down. The twist of who the Heart Eyes Killer is really, really underwhelming, because this is supposed to be like a nationwide thing where the Heart Eyes Killer pops up everywhere and it's this media frenzy. And then the twist is really confined to like the 5 characters we know. So it takes this nationwide story and condenses it to like this small group of people we've gotten to know. I don't know how you would have avoided that, but it started off with big, lofty ambitions, and then was like, right, we have these 3 pieces on the chessboard, let's just make it all about them. But, you know, it was a fun enough slasher. I'm not a big fan of that Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son, Cuba Gooding Jr. I think his name's Mason Gooding. He was in the recent Scream films. I don't really rate him as an actor. I don't find him that charming, and for this to work, that he's the guy, he's the meet cute Hugh Grant guy, he needs to be charming, and he isn't really. High and Low, the Kurosawa movie from the 60s. I'd never seen this. I've seen a bunch of his films, but not this one. But Spike Lee's remake was coming out, and I wanted to, watch the original before to compare and contrast. And then in the end, my review of the remake ended up just being me comparing it to the original. But I thought the Kurosawa original is a masterpiece. It's like a procedural, but it digs into these themes of capitalism and wealth, and what's more important? Is it the people or the money? And obviously the answer is people. But if you've got money, you're gonna take a bit of a pause before you answer that question. And the whole class thing of, it's a great premise that like the kidnapper thinks he's got the rich guy's son, but he actually got his driver's son. Then it's like, well, I still want the same ransom. So it creates this interesting moral dilemma, which is really like morality was a really key theme in Kurosawa's films. And this is one of the best one of the deepest explorations of it that he did. 7. This is a fantastic movie. This is this is another one. It's kind of a procedural, but it's mixed with horror slasher elements. And you've got this buddy cop thing with Brad Pitt as the young hotshot, the sort of the Mel Gibson, Martin Riggs role, and Morgan Freeman's the calm, collected veteran on the brink of retirement, kind of like the Danny Glover, Murtaugh role. And they have great chemistry, and Kevin Spacey, controversial figure though he is so chilling as John Doe. The whole movie builds up to who is this guy, and he's one of the few actors that could live up to that kind of build up. Same with Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now, where so much mystique has been built around this character. When you meet the character, you really need to feel the mystique. And with Marlon Brando and with Kevin Spacey, you do. I'm doing a video every David Fincher movie ranked, so just hang tight, and I will have my full thoughts on 7 in that. Highest to lowest. There's the Spike Lee remake of High and Low. And I quite enjoyed it. It's not the masterpiece that the original is, but it's this great little sort of remix of it. I mean, I did a video about it, so you can check that out. But I thought it was good. Denzel Washington was great, as always, and Jeffrey Wright playing the driver. They had a great dynamic. And it made some changes that kind of kept things fresh, and it weren't always for the best. The whole third act, it kind of becomes an action movie, and you kind of dilute the impact of the final confrontation at the jail by having them have the confrontation before then. But for a remake of a masterpiece, for a remake of Kurosawa, it's pretty damn good. The Out of Towners. This is Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn play these two like Midwesterners who now they're like empty nesters. He's got a job interview in New York, and they go out to New York for a couple of days so he can do the interview and they can see what would it be like if we had to move here. And they're ill-equipped to deal with New York. Like, they get there and they meet this guy who claims he's Andrew Lloyd Webber, and then he, like, takes them to a private spot and he, like, robs them, and he's just some guy. But really, they're as great as Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn are. The standouts were, like, the supporting cast. There's, you know, John Cleese was so funny in this movie as he's like the concierge at the hotel, where he's almost like playing Basil Fawlty if he worked at a big hotel in New York instead of a tiny one in Torquay. And Glenn Sturgis, I can't remember the actor's name, but the Glenn from Superstore, one of my favorite new shows, he was in this, and he was so young, and he had spoken in a normal voice, so it took me a while to realize, hey, that's Glenn. South Park Season 27. I'm still really enjoying this season. It's a bit annoying that they take like 2 weeks to make an episode, or 3 weeks in the case of the last one. And they seem to just be doing... There was something they did about 10 years ago. They had a season where they would just take a current news story and a current pop culture thing and just mash them together. Like they did the George Zimmerman episode was like a spoof of World War Z, which was in cinemas at the time. And it seems like they're doing that kind of flavor of the month storytelling again this season, where they'll just take a thing like Labubu's or, you know, FCC censorship or something that's going on in the news, and then kind of just mash it in with a subplot about Donald Trump fucking Satan, and now they're having a baby, and it seems like they just, like, that was a great gag when it started, but now they kind of don't really know what to do with it. Like, okay, we've got this Saddam Hussein version of Trump, fucking Satan, and where do we go from there? And it just feels like that he's in every episode for like half the episode, and none of it is actually about the crazy shit he's doing. There's been little gags and things like where he's taking bribes from companies and other governments, and there's a great bit where he's getting like loads of gifts for the baby, and he's like, where's my gifts? You know, like a petty kid at a birthday party. But it just feels like that first episode felt so radical and like made such a splash, and they've kind of not figured out how to follow that up. They've just been kind of doing the same thing every week, or every other fucking week. It's still really funny. I mean, I still love little baby JD Vance, and I love, you know, the whole thing with the City Walk guy being like, I don't get fucked by tariff, you get fucked by tariff. Only Murders in the Building, Season 5. I watched this all in one go, because I had screeners to review the whole season. And I enjoyed it. I mean, the last season I started to think, like, how long are they going to go on with this? And at a certain point it is like, how many fucking people are going to get killed in this one apartment building? But it's still a great little show, you know, it's still so much fun to watch Steve Martin and Martin Short and Selena Gomez, and they have such a great dynamic. They always bring in great guest stars, you know, and this season is no different. You get Christoph Waltz and Renee Zellweger, and Beanie Feldstein, I thought, was one of the standouts of this season. She's so funny as like a pop star friend of Selena Gomez. There's a great gag where her name is The. So if you go onto Spotify and you're trying to look for the Beatles or the Spice Girls or the Rolling Stones, she's the first one that comes up. And she, you know, she's just always great, and she was great in this. And I quite liked, you know, it's still very formulaic, and it's still kind of predictable. Bringing it into the world of the mafia kind of at least made it feel a little bit fresh, you know. So they bought themselves one more year, and then we'll see how they keep it fresh next year. Honey Don't, Ethan Coen's follow-up to, and Trisha Cook's follow-up to Drive Away Dolls, which I'd quite enjoyed. I quite liked that. And this was like very much in the same vein. It's like a quirky lesbian crime comedy with Margaret Qualley playing a very confident, very sexual person. And, you know, I enjoyed it. I did a video about it, so you can check that out. But it's gotten horrible reviews, but it's not a great film, you know, but it is a fun little comedy. And it is this interesting kind of, it's a kind of neo-noir spoof, but you never see, you know, first of all, you never really see women in these roles, apart from the femme fatale, but certainly not, you know, lesbians. And so just that alone was enough to make this like an interesting new twist on the formula. And Aubrey Plaza's fantastic in it, as she always is. And Charlie Day, it's fun to see Charlie Day as this detective who's always trying to like flirt with Margaret Qualley's character, and she keeps bluntly telling him, I like girls, and he's like, yeah, okay. And he's just like not getting it. And Chris Evans, hilarious in it as the baddie. It's just, you know, it's not a great film, it's not a particularly memorable film, but it's fun, you know, and it's nice and brief. It's like 80 minutes. Sorry Baby. This is Ava Victor's first film. masterpiece. It's a fucking masterpiece. I absolutely adored it. I think it's an incredible, you know, like we've seen a lot of movies about the trauma of sexual assault, and this feels totally unique in that kind of, I don't want to say genre, but you know, that kind of story, because it's, first of all, tells the story with a lot of humor, and it's not about making light of it, but it's more just about, that's her coping mechanism. It's less about like wallowing in the trauma and more about, how do I climb out of this? And it's these little moments of hope where she meets John Carroll Lynch, who's just this nice guy. His son has, you know, mental health issues, so he kind of, when he sees her having a panic attack, he kind of knows how to calm her down, and he just talks to her and lets her vent, and he listens. And you know, Naomi Aki's fantastic in it as her best friend, who is just so unstoppably supportive, which you need in a situation like that. And she's wonderful. Their chemistry was wonderful. I could have sworn they were actually best friends, but they're just it's just really good casting. It's a movie about going through like the worst pain imaginable and coming out on the other side and clinging to hope and trying to get some semblance of hope and optimism about the future. And really inspiring to see. And you know, it's it sounds crazy to say, because if you only know the subject matter, and I'm saying like, yeah, it's a fun, you know, it's a funny, entertaining movie, you'd be like, what, why, you know? But that's kind of the genius of Ava Victor's writing and directing. And there's this whole interlude, there's this whole scene in at a courthouse where she's on jury duty, and she's being asked, have you ever been the victim of violent crime, and all these things that suddenly are being laid bare in very plain terms that she's never, apart from her best friend, she's never really talked to anyone about this stuff. And now there's a room full of strangers, and she's under, you know, the eyes of a judge and being forced to talk about this stuff. And it's a really, really powerful scene. You know, it's a masterpiece. It's one of the best films of the year, easily. And the premise of it might make it sound like it's a tough watch, but just watch it. Everyone should watch this. I did a video about it that I thought it was a good video. I thought it was a very kind of well-rounded discussion of the film, and it didn't really do very well. No one watched it, and then it kind of occurred to me: no one wants to see a discussion of sexual assault from a channel called I Got Touched at the Cinema. You know, you see a movie about assault, and you see that channel name, you're gonna think, "Fuck this guy." So I completely get that. But I was very proud of that video. The Thursday Murder Club. I haven't read the Richard Osman book this was based on, but I quite like the movie. I like the premise of it. It's these old people in a retirement home with nothing but time on their hands, trying to solve cold cases, and then a new murder falls into their lap, and they've got to use their detective skills to figure out what happened. I thought it was a fun little comedy, you know? It's Ben Kingsley and Pierce Brosnan and Helen Mirren and all these fantastic actors. It's, you know, it's a nice, like a rainy afternoon, you know, have a mug of soup kind of movie to watch, you know. The Long Walk. There's another one I did a video about, and I thought it was incredible. I mean, it's like really, really bleak, like unrelentingly so, but it's kind of like a tearjerker as well, which I was not expecting at all. Because it's kind of, you know, it's been said to be allegorical of the Vietnam War, where the American government's saying, right, all you young lads march to your deaths unceremoniously. And along the way, they all become best friends because they're in this boat together. They're in this, you know, crazy situation, and all they have is each other. And that's how they keep their spirits up. They make friends. But that's what makes it so fucking heartbreaking. If they all just, like, kept to themselves and got killed, then it would just be a miserable film. But because they all become friends and they all love each other, especially when it gets towards the end of the film and we're down to like 8 people and you know all of them really well and you know how much they all love each other, it's fucking heartbreaking every time one of them gets killed and the rest just have to keep walking. The performances were absolutely incredible. Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson especially, they're kind of like the central dynamic of the film, and it's beautiful. Their dynamic's beautiful. It's an incredible film. I mean, I thought like, okay, it'll be this horrible dystopian thriller, and obviously it is, but it's a deeply touching horrible dystopian thriller. Superstore. I've continued to watch Superstore. I don't even know how many times I've cycled through this show now. I put it on when I fall asleep. I put it on the background when I'm working. And this month I went away for a week with my parents and my sister. We all went and stayed at a lodge. We didn't go too far because both of our surviving grandparents are in the midst of health stuff, so we didn't want to be too far away in case some bad shit happened. And I didn't realize that until we actually got there. And I was like, oh, that's why we're only going an hour from home, because in case someone has a medical emergency. But me and my sister got my dad onto Superstore. He's been binge watching it. So while we were away, we basically just watched like 2 or 3 full seasons of that in dribs and drabs. Which, I have to say, you know, a show like that, as much fun as it is for me to watch it at home alone, it's better with a group of people. The Last Stand. While I was away in my little bedroom in the lodge, the only thing I could watch was like TV, like television. So I was beholden to whatever was on Film 4 that night. And this movie, The Last Stand, was on, which I hadn't seen since it came out. I went to watch it with my friend Mike. We were like, when we were teenagers, we were huge fans of Schwarzenegger and Stallone and all those guys. And this was like his comeback after his political career. So we hadn't seen a new Schwarzenegger film in years. And so we were just really excited for a new Schwarzenegger action film. And then we show up on the opening weekend, we're so excited. And then like this big comeback just fucking flopped and died. You know, we were the only people in there except for this one guy who slept through the whole film. I think it was when I first started realizing the idea of the movie star was dying, you know. And the Schwarzeneggers and the Stallones of this world were getting replaced by the Thors and the Iron Mans and the Captain Americas. But this is a pretty cool film. It's, you know, the premise of it is very modern day Western, where Schwarzenegger's this small town sheriff, and they're the last line of defense where this Mexican drug boss is plowing through Texas or something on his way to the border, and he's going to make it to Mexico and he'll be out of their jurisdiction. But he's got to pass through this town, and Schwarzenegger and his ragtag group of deputies are going to stop him. And the action is great. It's very, very well directed and very, you know, high octane, explosive. But it takes way too long to get to the last stand, you know? The Western standoff in the town is like the last half an hour of the film, if that. And I feel like the whole movie should have been that. If you're gonna have a story that simple, where a guy's just driving through the town, you don't need more than a fucking hour to get there. The Shape of Water. The next night, Shape of Water was on, the Guillermo del Toro movie. And it's the perfect encapsulation of his style, where he takes these like schlocky, trashy genre ideas like Creature from the Black Lagoon and imbues them with this poignant social commentary. And this is all about the prejudices of 1950s society and Cold War era paranoia wrapped in this story about this. Because like the impetus for it was they always wanted to see the Creature from the Black Lagoon get with Julia Adams. So he made a movie where he does, you know? Where they're actually in love. And it's really, really beautiful. It's got some really, really beautiful visuals and cinematography. And it's really fucking weird. In a good way. I don't, you know, weird is good. I like weird. But like, she fucks a fish, you know. Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. I thought I'd seen every episode of Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. Because when I used to, my friend Ruth, who my Peep Show video was dedicated to, years ago when I kind of lived with her, I didn't technically live there, but I would stay there for weeks at a time and never paid a dime of rent. We used to watch this all day, every day, you know, and I thought I'd seen every episode, but there's new seasons. He started doing it again like 2 or 3 years ago. So those new episodes I'd never seen, and they were playing them on Channel 4 every night, and I fell back in love with this show. And then I got home, and I found a YouTube channel where you can watch full episodes of the British version. And for some reason, they never show the British version on Channel 4. They only show the American version. And I like the American version, but the British version's better, because the American one has so much bullshit editing going on, like cheesy music cues to try and amplify the drama. But I think it makes the drama shine more to just let it play out, and that's what the British version does. But that is so much fun to just watch him go into this shittily run restaurant and eat their shitty food and go in the kitchen and yell at everyone. And they usually, even though they've asked him to come and help them, and he has good advice, they are so stubborn usually. They don't want to listen to him. They want to magically keep doing things the way they're doing them, and also be really successful. And it's like every time it's a drill into them. That's impossible. The Naked Gun, the original, while we were away, we watched it. I only just watched it recently, but I still found it so funny to watch it again. Just one of the absolute greatest comedies ever made. Perfect spoof of noirs and cop movies and action movies. And just Leslie Nielsen, so damn watchable. The Roses. We went to watch The Roses during our week away. We were going to go and watch Spinal Tap II, but there was no good times for it, so we watched The Roses instead. I really enjoyed watching it again. I thought it was, you know, just as funny the second time. Their chemistry is obviously so good, and it's interesting that they don't jump straight at each other's throats going through the divorce process. They you get to there. You start off in love and they're having a great time, and then you see what chips away at the relationship and makes them hate each other by the end of it. I thought Tony McNamara, the screenwriter, did a really good job with that. Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola version of Dracula. And I'd seen this movie a couple of times, and I always remembered it being like the classy, artsy version of Dracula. But like watching it again now, it's very, very trashy. It's got lots of like gratuitous gore and nudity and just like weird Roger Corman type visuals. And I'm not complaining. I like trashy horror, you know? But it's just, I remembered it being like Godfather level of classy, and it's not at all. But it's good. I liked it. And it reminded me of Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. It was kind of like, that must have been a big influence on that, because it's Apart from being more colourful, the Coppola version of Dracula is very similar to the Eggers version. The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear. After we watched Naked Gun 1, watched Naked Gun 2. There's another one I just watched recently, and this is so funny. I think this is one of the best. 33 1/3 is a bit of a drop off, but I think 2.5 is one of the best comedy sequels in terms of like keeping up with the original and being as funny as the original. I mean, nothing could beat that original, but this one is still really, really funny. Die Hard. The original Die Hard was on Film 4 one night. I don't need to say it, that it's a masterpiece. It's one of the great action films ever made, maybe the greatest action film ever made, because it's, it's been said a million times. It's not a hot take, but I think what really helps, I think because Bruce Willis was doing moonlighting, he couldn't be there for like every day of shooting Die Hard, so they wrote in extra scenes for Al, and extra scenes for Argyle in the limo, and extra scenes for Harley and Ellis, and all these sort of supporting characters, and that kind of makes the movie, the fact that they're so well rounded, and you're not just following John McClane, there's a whole ragtag ensemble. It makes it feel as much like a character-driven drama as it is an action film. And the action's incredible. The explosion on the roof and the shootout and the fight scenes, and the action's amazing, but it's like the character work is really what kind of keeps you coming back. Jack Reacher. This was on Film 4 also. And it's, what's his fuck? Tom Cruise doing Jack Reacher. And, now that we've seen Alan Ritchson as Reacher, and he's this huge fucking Superman Bane guy, it's really hard to buy Tom Cruise as that character. Because Alan Ritchson's so much closer to what he's described. I mean, I've never even read the books, but how he's described in the books is this big, strapping, badass, tall motherfucker. And Tom Cruise is so the opposite of that. So you don't, there's a scene in the Jack Reacher film where he takes these guys outside, 8 guys, and they're all standing around in a circle, and he's getting ready to fuck them all up. I so buy that more if it's Alan Ritchson, A Time to Kill. This was on Film 4. And this is the one with the famous clip of Sam Jackson in court going, "Yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell." Where his daughter has been attacked and kidnapped and left for dead, and they tried to kill her, but she survived and she made it home. And then they arrest the 2 guys and bring them to court. And then Sam Jackson busts into the court and kills the 2 guys. And now he's on trial. And Matthew McConaughey is defending him. Sandra Bullock is his kind of whatever you'd call her, paralegal. Kevin Spacey, another one with the incredibly talented but deeply problematic Kevin Spacey as the what would you call him? The prosecutor. Chris Cooper is a cop who was injured in the shooting. Just phenomenal fucking cast. I think it was John Grisham wrote the book it was based on. It's just this really interesting kind of legal situation. Obviously, is John Grisham's bread and butter. I'd never seen the movie in full. Obviously, I've seen that clip of Sam Jackson and a few other parts of it. I found it, the message is very heavy-handed, but it was a gripping, well-acted little legal thriller. A big, bold, beautiful journey. This is the one with Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie with a magic sat-nav. It kind of fucking sucked. It's very schmaltzy. There's one really great scene in it where Colin Farrell meets his own dad during his own birth. And his dad's really worried about him. And Colin Farrell comforts his dad during his birth. It's hard to describe, but that was really beautiful, and that's what the whole film should have been. But the whole rest of the film is very sappy and saccharine and very simplistic, and it kind of wants to be this Charlie Kaufman thing, but it's just not clever enough. It's not, it wants to be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but it's not. The Lowdown. I got screeners for this. Sterling Harjo's new show, follow-up to Reservation Dogs. Ethan Hawke plays a journalist riding around in a beaten-up old van trying to, expose corrupt businessmen and white supremacists, and it's really fucking good. I really like this show. I actually tipped the scales on Rotten Tomatoes because it was on 96%, and then my review got added, and it ticked up to 97%. It didn't make a difference. It didn't tip the scales from rotten to fresh. But it was cool to see my little contribution actually change the number. But yeah, 97%, everyone seems to pretty much be in agreement. This show's fucking awesome. Ethan Hawke's amazing in it. He kind of has this very eccentric take on the character where he's kind of like the dude where he's this oddball pacifist who gets swept up in this criminal world and has these bad guys chasing him. But Ethan Hawke plays it more like Crazy Heart era Jeff Bridges. It's just great to see a fucking journalist chasing the truth and exposing the truth no matter what he's threatened with or who he's intimidated by, which is more than I can say for most actual news media in the world today. Anyone But You is the rom-com, Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. And I'd seen, I think, bits of it. I don't think I'd seen the whole film. And, it's just pretty generic, mediocre rom-com. Their chemistry is great, but the Shakespeare thing is very forced. And a lot of the kind of the sexual politics and gender politics and relationship dynamics of Shakespeare don't really hold up today if you put it in a modern setting at a wedding in Sydney, you know. It was so shoehorned in. There was like a Shakespeare line written on the fucking wall or on a sign in like every scene. And it's like, we get it. You're doing fucking Much Ado About Nothing. You don't have to fucking print it on the fucking screen. I thought the Natasha Bedingfield stuff was very shoehorned in and very forced, and like, it's, you know, you got this typical bullshit rom-com premise where they're trying to pretend they're a couple in front of everyone they know. And then they're like stuffing their hand down each other's pants. And it's like, why do you even want your parents to see that? If you actually were a couple, you wouldn't be fucking doing that. I mean, I understand when Glenn Powell read that in the script, I was like, duh, okay, I could do that. But it doesn't make sense. And you know, at the end, when he races to find her, and it's the rom-com gesture where it's like, you know, and he lists all the things he loves about her. I love the way your little nose crinkles up when you laugh, and but it's all like so generic. It's all like, you know, I love the way you're left-handed. I love the way you brush your teeth in the morning. I love the way you listen to music when you exercise. It's like that Bo Burnham song, where he's like a love song that could apply to anyone, where he's like, I love how your torso has an arm on either side and stuff like that. I love your eyes in their bluish, brownish, greenish color. Like, that's what it's like. And, you know, because these characters aren't defined enough. Like, with this, the equivalent scene in When Harry Met Sally, when Harry tracks down Sally at the New Year's Eve party, and he says, you know, when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. He lists a lot of things he loves about her, and it's stuff we know about Sally because we've gotten to know Sally in the movie, because it's a very good movie and well written. You know, this isn't that. This wouldn't have been the big epic comeback of the rom-com if it hadn't been the fucking only one to come out in 5 years. If this had come out in the mid-2000s, if this had come out around the time of the Matthew McConaughey, Kate Hudson type films, it would have just disappeared into the slush pile. Spinal Tap II, The End Continues. I did a video about this. I quite enjoyed it. You know, it's not as funny as the original. It's not as perfect a movie as the original or as tight, you know, but it's it is worthwhile. It's definitely worth checking out. And those, you know, Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, and Harry Shearer all slip effortlessly back into those roles. It's like they haven't missed a beat, you know. It's been 40 years. And usually when they do these belated comedy sequels, they get back into character. And, you know, like on Coming to America, the sequel, you know, it doesn't really feel like Eddie Murphy is playing Prince Akeem. It just feels like he's playing today Eddie Murphy, you know. But this is really Nigel Tufnell and David St. Hubbins and Derek Smalls. And Rob Reiner's so great at sort of feeding them lines to tee them up for a riff. It's just great to see those guys again and hang out with them again. I mean, most of the film, they're just jamming. They're like rehearsing for the gig. So it's not a masterpiece on the level of the original, but it's definitely worth checking out if you're a fan. Wednesday Season 2. The second half of Season 2 came out, and yeah, I enjoyed it fine enough, but the body swap episode I absolutely adored. That was fucking awesome, where Wednesday and Enid switch bodies. They did, Emma Myers and Jenna Ortega did such a great job of playing each other. Where Emma Myers, who's usually playing this very upbeat, chipper, happy, you know, suddenly she's playing Wednesday in her body, and she suddenly becomes very sullen and very brooding and dark. And Jenna Ortega did a great job of playing Enid in her body, where she suddenly is very chipper and upbeat and dancing around. That was great. That was fucking amazing, that episode. And, you know, a lot of body swap stuff, the actors don't fully embody each other, so you kind of forget who's who. But in that, you never forget. It's like, it's almost like a magic trick where you actually believe they've switched bodies because they're so good at playing each other, you know. But I love that episode so goddamn much. I might do a whole video about it because it was so much fun. The Wrong Paris. I generally love these like cheesy little cliched rom-coms on Netflix. I like the one that Miranda Cosgrove did last year. Mother of the Bride, I think it was called. It was like her and Brooke Shields as her mom, and she reconnects with her ex, Benjamin Bratt, and it was, you know, I liked it. It was fun. And this, The Wrong Paris, it's a great premise where she needs to get to Paris to start uni, and she doesn't have the money. So she goes on a reality show that's going to take her, like a dating show that's going to take her to Paris, but they take her to Paris, Texas, like an hour from her hometown. So that was a really great premise, you know. And then she's going to just get through it and get the prize money, but she starts to fall in love with the guy. In theory, that should be a great rom-com, but there was no chemistry between the leads. I love Miranda Cosgrove. I grew up watching her in School of Rock and Drake and Josh and iCarly. But this guy she's paired with, she has no chemistry with him. He's just boring. If he didn't have the cowboy thing going, there would be nothing interesting about him. That's all you can remember is like, oh yeah, he's kind of a cowboy. He wears the hat and he has the accent. Madison Pettis steals the fucking movie. She's so funny. She's like the, who you see in every reality show, the vindictive, crazy one who sees all the other contestants as her, like, mortal enemy. And she has a great thing with Miranda Cosgrove. Their rivalry is really fun to watch. It was kind of weird seeing Madison Pettis, like, sexualized, because I mean, she's like 30 now, but I remember as a kid seeing her in like The Game Plan with Dwayne Johnson or Corey in the House, So it's weird to see her all grown up and like trying to get with this guy. It was strange, but she's just so funny in it. Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues. When I did my review of Spinal Tap 2, I kind of mentioned that it was Anchorman 2 is a good comparison because it's still really funny, but it's not quite the masterpiece of the original, but still worth a lot of chuckles and better than most comedy sequels. And then it kind of occurred to me I hadn't seen Anchorman 2 in a while, so I watched it, and it isn't the first one. I mean, it's about half an hour longer and feels half an hour longer, but it's and there's some storylines that don't really jibe for me a bit, where like Brick has a love story with like the female version of Brick played by Kristen Wiig, and I would have cut that altogether, frankly. But there's still some really funny stuff in it. The whole thing where Ron goes blind and lives in a lighthouse, that's a funny little run. And the whole thing of him going out with a black woman and he meets her family and he's trying to like assimilate but doing it in a really tone-deaf way. It was jam-packed with cameos. I mean, that was the same thing with Spinal Tap 2 and Happy Gilmore 2. People like the original, so let's get all these famous faces to pop up in the sequel. And some of them have not aged well, Will Smith, you see Will Smith pop up and you're like, oh shit, the slap guy. Kanye West is there as like the MTV news anchor. Drake is the first celebrity cameo. He shows up at the beginning to comment on Christina Applegate's arse, and it's like, isn't she a bit old for him? Gen V Season 2. Gen V was a real nice surprise when it showed up a couple of years ago, because it's, spin-offs are very, very hit and miss, and way more miss than hit. But this was a great one. This was, it's in the boys' world, but it's at college, so everyone's even more debauched than usual. And this season is continuing to have so much fun with the characters' powers, Marie's bloodbending is such this twisted, fucked up thing to have. And Emma's shrinking abilities they have the most fun with. Like when she ends up in a toilet bowl, she sees like an arsehole coming down to sit on the toilet seat and she's desperately trying to climb out the bowl before he shits. That's crazy, and they would only do that in the boys' universe. Step Brothers. After Anchorman 2, I was in like an Adam McKay, Will Ferrell mood. And Step Brothers is one of my absolute favorite movies. It's actually... Me and my best pal Luke are, we kind of are creative partners or whatever you'd call it. And, brothers from another mother. Step Brothers is like collectively between us our favorite film, and we must have seen it a million times together. It's so fucking funny. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly's chemistry is so good, and Richard Jenkins and Mary Steenburgen are so good. It's like the straight men, kind of like the normal people who ground all this craziness in the real world. And Adam Scott as Brennan's brother he's so good at playing just like a nice, likable guy, like in Parks and Rec, but he's also so good at playing like an unbearable douche too. But I might do a video about Step Brothers one day. I absolutely adore it. One battle after another. This is, the new Paul Thomas Anderson, Leo, Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, Regina Hall. Chase Infinity is kind of the breakout star. She's wonderful in it. I did a video about this, so you can check that out. But this is fucking awesome. This might be the best movie of the year. It's a big, crazy car chase movie, but it's also like a timely discussion of the rise of American fascism and how much power should the US government have, and at what point do you push back against the fascism and the authoritarianism, and how can you? What do you do? And what are the consequences of it? It's like so rare that it almost never happens that you get a big budget, big studio movie with big stars that touches on such timely, sensitive issues in such a daring way. And it's, and it's not just like, okay, we'll do a big action movie and we'll say it's political. It's like, it's more like it's a deep, thoughtful political drama, and it has some car chases. It goes the other way. But yeah, if you want my full thoughts, I've got the video up. It's called Make American Cinema Great Again. Title I was very proud of. Waiting for Guffman. I was in a Christopher Guest mood after watching the Spinal Tap 2. And this is just a masterpiece. It's such a, like, the whole movie itself is a joke with the punchline that Guffman didn't show up, a la Waiting for Godot. But it's just, the ensemble's so good, where it introduces you to all the Christopher Guest regulars. You've got, Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy and Fred Willard, Parker Posey, and they're all so funny in it, and so, they capture their characters perfectly. And Fred Willard is the standout as the guy who, like, thinks he's hilarious and isn't. And he, like, you watch that, it's hard to describe, but you watch that character and you're like, I know that guy, I've met that guy, unfortunately, And just Christopher Guest himself as Corky St. Clair, such a great performance. So good. Old School. After Anchorman 2, I was in a Will Ferrell mood, so I watched Old School. And he's so good as Frank the Tank, you know, he's got that whole lot of scene where those guys tell him to chug a beer, and he goes like, no, I can't, I've got a big day tomorrow. And they're like, big day? What are you doing? He's like, gonna go to Home Depot, get some wallpaper, and might go to Bed Bath & Beyond, I don't know if we'll have time. And then they talk him into doing it, and he drinks the beer, and then he's like, it's so good when it hits your lips. And there's, you know, the whole scene where he goes streaking, and I mean, that streaking scene paired with Elf in the same year, that was when Will Ferrell just went from SNL guy to movie star, where it's like, this guy will commit to anything. If you have to have him, you know, run naked through the streets, he'll do it, you know. Or if you have him eat used gum off a railing in New York, dressed as a Santa's elf, he'll do it. And there's so many little random things he does in the film. There's like a bit where he's like, he gets married, and then like the day later he's like in the middle of a midlife crisis, where he's like fixing up an old car in front of the house and drinking beer in the middle of the day. And he's telling his wife about it, and he's saying like, keep it on the down low because it's not exactly street legal. And then he just looks off screen and goes, hey Mike, to no one, you know, like to some guy off screen. And it's just such a random choice that like, who would think to do that? But that's a classic. It's a very chauvinistic movie, very 2000s in terms of its gender roles, but so funny. One of the greatest comedies. So yeah, they have everything I watched in September. Some huge disappointments. A big, bold, beautiful journey being one of them. But also some stuff that lived up to the hype. You know, one battle after another. Sorry, baby. Some really great stuff. So, what have you all been watching this month? You know, let me know in the comments below, and I will speak to you at the end of October. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.